I'd like to call the June 24th, 2019 meeting of the Matthews Board of Commissioners to order. Let the record reflect that the mayor and all commissioners are present. We'll start out with a safety minute. If we do have to evacuate this room, we would go out the back doors. To the right is a set of steps that many of you may have come up. Go down those stairs through the lobby and out to the front green in front of the building. There's also a stairwell to the back that will take you downstairs to the back lobby and out into the parking lot. You'll move away from the building so that emergency personnel can get to the building if need be. If you have anything sitting on the floor in front of you, please put it under your chair or under the chair in front of you so that you're not blocking the pathway for other folks to get out if need be. To the right side of the welcome desk out front, there is a defibrillator. It is working, appears to be working. So we do have the chief here who's trained in that, but apparently it is self-explanatory, so hopefully we won't need that. Next item on the agenda is the invocation. I'd like to call on Commissioner Jeff Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. For those who choose to share in a prayer, let us bow our heads. Dear God, you have said that where two or more are gathered in your name, that you will be with them. We ask you to be with us now, bless us, and provide guidance to the Matthews Town Council with the business brought before us tonight. May we prove worthy of the confidence placed in us by our fellow citizens. May we be honest in our actions and make the best decisions not only for today but for years to come. We thank you for our civil liberties and freedoms, for our privileges and opportunities. Freedom is not free, so please keep watch over our men and women in the military, police, and fire departments as they serve and protect all of us. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight we have a presentation. Each year the Matthews Human Services Council awards the Nancy Glenn Community Servant Award, and this is named after Nancy Glenn, who many here remember Nancy and her selfless acts of support within the community on working with nonprofits. And you know, the thing I always notice about Nancy is that she was never out there parading what she was doing. She was very quiet, and if you didn't know who she was and what she did, you would really not know how much she did for this community. So I'd like to call on Bill Helms, who's the president of the Matthews Human Services Council. Bill, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor, Commissioners, Hazen, citizens of Matthews, my name is Bill Helms. I'm the president of the Matthews Human Services Council. The Matthews Human Services Council's mission is to enhance the quality of life for the people living in the Matthews area by collaborating and being the driving force with local nonprofit agencies, organizations, and institutions to help resolve the needs of the Matthews community. I would like to say that this also is our 24th year. This is not a new organization. Matthews Human Services Council was founded in 1995. So in 2020, we will be 25 years old. So we have to plan some big blowout for that big event. Before I read sort of the qualifications for the Nancy Glenn Award, there was a person that sort of surfaced very quickly to the top as far as the recipient of this award. Levine Senior Center were the folks, particularly Dawn and Christiana, that wrote an incredible letter about this lady. And I think that when you hear some of the accolades, and I won't read the whole letter, we can certainly make you a copy if you'd like, but she is definitely exemplary of what the Nancy Glenn Award is about. I will just pull excerpts out. You rarely come across a person who is so attentive to microscopic details. She's a lovable person to be around, dedicated worker, always tries to be positive. She never hesitates to take on any challenges. She ensures that all projects are completed and successful. Her skills are not limited to working environment. Her willingness to give of her time and energy goes beyond the call of duty. We believe that she is not only an educator and an advocate, but she truly connects the Matthews community with a compassionate heart to make a remarkable experience with whatever events she has in the works. And I could not agree more with all those. So thank you, Levine, for that wonderful accolade. So the Nancy Glenn Award, Community Services Award, as the mayor said, is awarded annually in honor of Nancy Glenn, who was a true community servant. Nancy represented all that's good about our town of Matthews. She gave of her heart and love through the selfless acts of time and dedication to help those in need by supporting many of our local nonprofit agencies. For outstanding commitment and award, this service is presented annually to a person who demonstrates such inspiration, dedication, and commitment to Matthews and the nonprofit community. Before we give the award, I'd like to ask for Roland Bebo, the President, COO of Matthews Medical Center, to come up and say a few words to us.
That's a great introduction. Thank you. Appreciate that. First of all, Mayor, Town Council, thank you for having us here tonight. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Community Health Services Council Board. Thank you for all that you do for the great town of Matthews and its surrounding communities. And Bill, thank you for your leadership. It's a privilege to be here tonight and in front of what I call our Novant Health Matthews Medical Center family, and then your family who chose to sit in the back because of a lovely granddaughter that may give her a challenge, and she did find a way out of here. But I want to thank you for being here tonight. You already know how great this woman is, but Carla came to Matthews Medical Center a few years back, and we had I think a very good program of how we connect with our community. But under Carla's leadership and guidance, when you heard the word remarkable, I think that doesn't even do it justice. But I call her the amazing connector, because you meet Carla once, and she doesn't forget you, and I guarantee you won't forget her. Because what she does in her role in connecting our community to not just Matthews Medical Center, but Novant Health, but also to the many organizations within this community that do a lot of great things for our community. I'm sure as you, as citizens, understand the great needs that we continue to have, even though we're a rather small community compared to our Charlotte, but the needs are massive. In the not-for-profits that are certainly here tonight in support of this, we couldn't do it without them. We couldn't do it without the amazing support of the town of Matthews. So Carla, on behalf of our leadership team of Matthews Medical Center, our team members, but also of our entire corporation, I want to thank you for your dedication. And the award that you're about to receive, still, I think it's great, but for all that you do, someday you're going to continue to, who knows, you'll get a Nobel Prize someday. But I want to thank you personally for your support. And the one word that resonate, well, actually it's 3 words: can do it. Anytime you say to Carla, this is what we're thinking, you think you can make it work, we never turn our backs. She makes it happen, if you will. So thanks for the dedication. We do appreciate you. We do admire you. So thanks for all you do, and we're going to continue to be here supporting you as long as you support us. So thank you to citizens of Matthews. You'll get a feel of how fortunate we are as a medical center to have you guiding us in our community resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Roland. Before I give the award, I just wanted to show the people here who may not know, this award started in 2008, And this particular plaque hangs here at Town Hall, and it hangs at a very prominent place that you all already are aware of, kind of thing out here on the hall wall. So this goes back to the town of Matthews with the name Carla Ennis on there for 2018. So on behalf of the Matthews Human Services Council Board and all of our members, we would like to present the 2018 Nancy Glenn Award to Miss Carla Ennis.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I made a few notes because I usually get very nervous when I have to speak in front of people. But if you'll just give me a few seconds. Thank you to the family of Nancy Glenn, the town of Matthews. Thank you, Mayor Bailey, and to my friends and colleagues in the Matthews Human Service Council. Words cannot express how thrilled I am to receive such a significant honor. And when I look at the past Nancy Glenn Award recipients, 4 of them my dear friends, Iris DeVore, Bill Helms, Tina Whitley, and someone who is sadly no longer with us, Gail Rothschild, I am humbled. 7 years ago, when I started in the role of community nurse educator at Presbyterian Hospital in Matthews, my manager, Eileen Ciotti, who is here, and Roland Bebo met with me to, there's no introductions needed for Roland, needed to discuss my new role. During this meeting, Roland cited a 4-page list, I still have it, so there's no disputing that, of the individuals in Matthews that I needed to connect with. I had no idea how significant this list would become, but as I worked through the names, many of you who are in this room, I quickly developed valuable community partnerships as well as treasured friendships. Okay, here's where I get emotional. Speaking of community partnerships and treasured friendship, thank you, Dawn Jenkins and Christiana Walters, for your community partnership, friendship, and for nominating me for this award. Thank you, David. And I also want to thank my team, Sheila Mobley and Tracy Leitner. We hide them in Monroe, but anything big that needs to happen, that's how it happens, okay? I am reminded of a quote by Harvey Mackay that states, "Find something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life." I love being Novant Health Matthews Medical Center community nurse educator, and I am grateful to serve such an extraordinary community as Matthews. Thank you once again for this great honor.
Okay, you might want your families come up and all the friends that are here that are listening. Come on up, family. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, please. Tracy and Sheila and we're waiting on Matilda. She's the most important one.
Next item on the agenda is items to be added to the agenda. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, we would like to add one thing, a budget amendment. Our Parks and Recreation Department, the Cultural Arts Center, it's been so successful that he has overspent his budget by about $60,000. So we're asking for more expenditure. But on the revenue side, the reason we're overspent is we brought in over $144,000 of additional revenue. So you provide more services, you get more expenditures. So we're recommending to put that on the agenda for the consent agenda under 9C.
9B2.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion to add an amendment for Park and Recreation under the consent agenda as item 9B2?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is public comment. No one signed up this evening for the public comment. Next, we'll go to reports from advisory committees. We have 3 reports in minutes that are provided in the package. We have a 4th report from the Appearance and Tree Board, and we have Chairman Debbie Foster here. Debbie, if you'd like to come up and speak to us, please.
Good evening, everyone. I decided to do a really quick PowerPoint presentation for you because I have a list for you tonight, and I think it'll help stick in your memory better. It'll help me as well. So this is a list of items which the Appearance and Tree Advisory Committee brainstormed on, as we were instructed to do when we first came together, about ways that we can preserve our tree canopy or add to our trees in Matthews. Everybody's very concerned about that. So we've got some ideas. Some of them are a little outside the box, but as I was telling John Urban earlier tonight, we don't have any restrictions, so we just brainstorm and go for it. So, some ideas and suggestions. We need a real accounting for what our current tree canopy is. I believe that the last survey that was done is more than 2 years old. There has been a lot of development in Matthews since then, and in fact, there's been a lot more development approved, which we know will impact the tree canopy. So we need a current assessment before we can even start to make some educated plans for what we're doing. There's a difference between tree canopy and the number of trees, and I addressed this, I think, the first time I spoke to this group. Tree canopy shows up from an overhead shot. Little 1 or 2 inch diameter trees that are planted by developers don't show up so much in a shot, so you can't really say that's part of our canopy. It will be, but the question is how many years will it take it to be part of the canopy, assuming those trees survive. So we also need to look at the number of trees. To my knowledge, there's not anything that actually assesses the actual number of trees that are lost each year, either from storm damage or, wind. The hurricanes last year took out a lot of trees. We had a storm this week that took out a lot of trees. Trees that die just because they age out. All right, so we really don't know, and that's in addition to trees that are removed by developers. So we obviously need to increase plantings to offset our losses. One idea is to save the largest specimens in town because we have some gorgeous trees. Those 2 oaks in front of Matthews Elementary, great example. The redwood that's in front of Seaboard, of all places to have a redwood, okay, they weren't even supposed to grow here, but that's a magnificent tree in front of redwood, in front of Seaboard. And New York City actually celebrates their tree specimens, their specimen trees, so that's something we could do on Arbor Day as they do it as well. For new development, increasing buffer zone requirements, and you've already done this within the last several years, And I don't know that it's going to be acceptable to increase it by a lot, but maybe if we could go 1% or 2% more, that's something that maybe will be palatable to everyone. What we've seen is that the developers tend to leave a strip on the outside, basically, like a frame of a picture. But I'm proposing that they also identify some interior trees, whether they're putting in a small green space in the middle of a development or a small park. That's another way to put in some more trees. And then increasing or removing totally the option to pay in lieu of, because let's face it, when our trees are gone, it's going to take a long time to get them back, and our town is not going to be the same. We will go back to being Stumptown again. For new development also, require a minimum number of trees per site. And I had this idea as I was listening to the development for Discount Tire. There's precious few trees on that site right now, so if we only require them to keep 11% of them, that might equate to 1 tree. So maybe we need to think about it from a different perspective and have a minimum number of trees. What can we do for people who are willing to go the extra mile and say, I think this is important, I hear what the people of Matthews are saying, and how can we sweeten the pot for them and make the right behavior easier? I hear a lot of complaints because there is vacant retail space in Matthews, not a huge amount right now, but there is vacant space, and people are upset because we're losing more trees when property is cleared for development when there's an empty spot. So can we incentivize that somehow? Planting trees on newly acquired public lands. This is not going to make a huge impact, but as we gather lands either that are deeded over to the town or that are purchased by the town, can we go ahead and start planting trees on those immediately? So a couple of good examples, the Fincher Farm property and the property at McKee and Pleasant Plains. We could do something at either one of those sites. Business plantings, can we get people to buy in, especially in our downtown area? Can we get them to say, I will sponsor a planter or I will plant a tree, and we can increase the number of plantings that way. And then pocket parks, small, visible pocket parks that are easy for people to see as they're driving by or walking by would be a wonderful thing. Tree giveaways. If we want more trees, let's give them away for free. So we actually have talked to Trees Charlotte. I think they told us no 3 times. 3rd time was the charm. So now they have agreed to partner with us in the town of Matthews. One of the things that they told us is they get a lot of people from Matthews trying to get the free trees in Charlotte, and you're not allowed to do that. So they turn them away. So they will partner with us to host a free tree giveaway. These are 8 to 10 foot tall trees, so they are not little tiny saplings or seedlings. They're good sized trees, and the bulk of them are natives, and we will certainly specify natives for our use. They have to take a 15-minute class which tells them how to plant and maintain the tree, and then they are given a free bag of mulch. And the only reason they're given only 1 bag is because we don't want anybody drowning the trees in mulch and creating a mulch volcano, because that will kill the tree. So if you only give them 1 bag, odds are pretty good they can't drown the tree in mulch. We do have to provide that mulch. So with the money that you allocated for the Appearance and Tree Advisory Committee last month, we can use that to purchase the bags of mulch. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. We're thinking about the aesthetic appearance of trees in Matthews, or Matthews losing trees, but there are a lot of other compelling reasons that we want to keep our tree canopy or the number of trees. So some health benefits is simply improved water quality. Runoff and erosion are hugely expensive to deal with, and we see that happening in our area as well. So those things can be taken care of simply by keeping trees and adding trees. Significant recovery from stress, and this is something that we're all struggling with in our particular culture right now, and trees can actually help with that as well. Benefit to the economy. A mature tree can have between $1,000 and $10,000 in value. I actually saw one that went up to as high as $20,000. That was amazing. Increase a home's value from 3 to 15%. Now look at the date on that particular statistic. It's 2007. Given the amount of habitat destruction and loss across the United States in the last 11 years, I wonder if those figures might not be a lot higher. A stimulus to economic development. People like trees. They like green spaces. They like to come in. It's just more attractive from the shopper's standpoint and from the tenant's standpoint. And then the cooling effect is absolutely mind-boggling. One young, healthy tree. So that might be something in the 1 to 2 inch diameter range. 10 room-size air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. That is awesome. And then the health benefits, removing pollutants from the air, providing shade, conserving energy, reducing temperature. And 1 acre of trees, which is not that big, provides oxygen for 18 people. And what I tried to do as I was pulling together this particular presentation is I tried to show you a variety of sources for this. So you have some tree hugging sources, and you also have some other sources that don't have a dog in that hunt. So, any questions on this?
Do we have any questions for Debbie? Mr. Urban?
Debbie, the Appearance and Tree Board at one time had the Heritage Tree and Legacy Tree, and if you can't find that information, or if Ralph still has it, great. If not, I might be able to dig that back up.
Perfect.
Because I remember that program. We didn't meet the state standards of the width and the height and some other things, but we had some trees that were very close. They were designate. And then the other thing was, how do you may know that Charlotte's sort of backed off its position for tree canopy. And it's not so much about tree canopy now, it's about what you were talking about, it's the number of trees, quality of trees. So I tend to wonder, going back to the planning board and having a discussion, that it's not all about tree canopy, but it's some of these other avenues of departure. Have you guys talked about that yet, or is this the sort of first toe into the water discussion?
This is a first toe in the water. We've had a lot of discussion. One of the things that wasn't on this that should have been, and it was on one of the versions I did of this, was the idea of budgeting for exotic invasive tree removal. Charlotte's budget they've got a line item budget in their Parks and Rec budget for $200,000 a year simply to remove exotic invasives, because exotic invasives take over everything that they're around. Look at the wisteria over at Squirrel Lake Park and at the new park on Rice Road, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Kudzu does the same thing, English ivy does the same thing. So we can plant trees all day long, but if we also have those exotic invasives running amok, they're going to girdle and kill the trees in, say, 10 years max. So maybe we need to be thinking about, okay, what do we need to be doing to take care of the trees that we have right now? Picture Squirrel Lake Park with about 40 of those large trees as you face the lake. On the right, 40 of those gone, because about that many are impacted by wisteria right now.
Any other questions? Debbie, on the tree giveaway, we have native plants. Did you say that we would get trees that are native to this area?
We can specify what they give us. They are not 100% natives. They do choose 100% trees that are successful in this area and that are not exotic invasives in this area.
Okay.
But we would like to see, because of what we're promoting in the town of Matthews, to use all natives, and I don't think that will be an issue.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Mr. Higdon?
Yes, Debbie, when is the next exotic invasive removal from Squirrel Lake Park? I know we had a pretty successful volunteer effort, what was that, about a year ago, I guess? Or?
Yeah, we don't have it scheduled right now. We're thinking September or October, when the weather cools down and some of the leaves start to come off of the stuff. It'll be easier to do it.
And how many people did you have show up for that? There was a lot, wasn't there?
I think I counted 60 on the sign-up sheet, and there were a few that I know didn't sign in. So that was tremendously successful.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, let's.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, I'm not familiar with the native species, but I like 2 trees. Is a dogwood or a crepe myrtle native?
You're batting 500 there. So our native dogwood is Cornus florida, and that's the dogwood everybody associates with this area. There is a Japanese dogwood called a Kusa dogwood that blooms much later, and that one is not native to this area. And the crepe myrtle is not native to this area. And there are a lot of people, I would be one of them, who consider it to be grossly overused in landscaping.
Okay, thank you. Why is the dogwood named Florida then?
It's the botanical name. When you are trying to identify plants, the safest way of doing it is by the botanical name. That way you're not going to accidentally get one that came from China or Japan and think it's native.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
report. Okay, next item is the consent agenda, items A through B2. Do we have a motion?
So,
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Unfinished business, receive update on planning conference to-do list. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So we'll go through this, and please, if you have any questions, jump right in. So 5 and 6 are kind of related. It's about the civic youth outreach, kind of advisory. So Maureen Keith, our PIO, has made several attempts with, I put down no success, maybe limited success with with Butler. And I think the question to this group is like, this did come up at a planning conference. Kind of how important is this? Let me just go on and roll into the second one too. The second one is about internship program for a high school student in Matthews to sit on some of our advisory boards. We had that with the planning board. It's tough. I mean, you get these teachers and their advisors and they're very busy, and Maureen, I would say it's hard to get their attention through the school year to get them to focus, and so we haven't had success. We've been trying for this for about a year. So my question would be, how important is this to the board? And we don't mind, I know Maureen doesn't mind to keep trying, but we haven't been successful yet.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you. Would it be better, or would it be a decent suggestion to try CPCC or something?
A college student?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the reasons for 5 and 6 is maybe for an opportunity for a high school kid to kind of develop an interest, or even kind of from a resume building standpoint. There may be college students that are interested. I don't know, but that was the original concept between these two on the agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Mint?
Are we only obligated to try CMS public schools? Could we go to the private schools? There's we've got Carmel Christian School, we've got Covenant Day, we've got a number of good places around, and that might glean some interest. I just know Brian Lee was our star youth voice on the planning board, and there got to be more people like him that would really add some value and give us a perspective from the youth.
I think that's a good idea. Mr. Higdon?
Yes, I think somehow, I don't have any suggestions on how to do this, but I think we need to target the kids and not their teachers, because I can't help but think that there's a lot of ambitious students that would take advantage of this if they knew about it, and I think if we're just going after teachers, they're probably filing the memo in a garbage can or something, and I think if the students were aware of it, I can't help but believe that a school like Butler, at least a couple kids would come forward and want to participate. A counselor or a memo that we can pass out to the actual students instead of the teachers. I think probably it's not getting past that first level, would be my guess, because I know a lot of those kids and they're really ambitious. I think some of them would like to participate.
So what I'm hearing, it's something the board's still interested in, and you guys would like to see us keep after it.
Promoting ourselves.
Maureen, do you have anything you want to add?
This might be something too that the Education Advisory Committee could help with as well, because that's
That's a
somewhat,
great task for them.
yeah, that's what we were envisioning when we formed that group.
All right, number 6, this is really a fascinating question. It's come up before, but the question is, what size house, or how much taxes does a house have to pay in Matthews to, the word we're using is pay the freight for services. When I first got here, there was a number, this was 15 years ago, there was a number out there, and the board all knew it, and I remember pressing staff, like, where did we come up with this number? And I never got comfortable with the answer. And so we are still looking into this. I do not want to give you guys a number. We had a methodology that Jay Camp came up with. It just didn't ring real well with me, and because I think it's a very important one that people aren't going to forget, and some people are going to try to argue, well, you know, any house less than this value, you're subsidizing the house, and that may not be a true statement. So I want to be very careful of this. And we did find out that Wingate University did contract with Union County to answer this same question. We're trying to determine, or attempting to determine, if the Union County study is applicable to Matthews. Jay did reach out to Wingate. You know, they're willing to talk to us. I think they're also willing to charge us. You know, it's like, okay, you know, I don't. So we're going to keep pushing on this. I just want to let you guys know we don't have an answer to this question.
Mr. Higgin, I'm sorry.
I just want to ask the question, what's the purpose of the information? Why do we care what that number is? Are we going to banish people that live in homes that cost less than a certain value? And I don't really see the value of even knowing the number.
Well, I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but I have seen these studies done before. But the way I've seen it is like one is a break-even number, and what I've seen in the studies I've seen, below one are things that aren't quite paying for all their services, and above one is something that's they're paying for more services than they're getting. And a classic example is, generally speaking, commercial takes less services from a town than residential. And so that's the way I've seen it. I have not seen a number tied to it before.
If I can recall correctly, I think it had to do with zoning requests, rezoning requests, and whether or not the board wanted to approve those. And so this would be another data point that could come into account as far as whether or not it was going to be the right development for the town.
All right, number 18 there is the work at, well, this is what came out of the planning conference, was discuss plan to combine driveway access to close driveway entrance in front of Bregman's and improve pedestrian safety. You know, right there is, those two driveways are right there together. One of them's really steep. You got the speed table in there, and we have engaged a firm to look at that. Some of this is part of the mobility study that you guys heard about the other week, but Susan Habina Willard is working with a design firm, and they have done some survey work. We're going to give you a better update, a more in-depth update at the next meeting, which will be July 8th. Conduct board training on emergency operations. Really, the first step was at the closed session today. You know, you guys heard the plan. Y'all adopted the county plan. We'll update our plan. You'll see that at the second meeting in July. And then what we want to do is train you as a board on the town and the county's emergency operations plan, so you guys understand what would happen in the case of emergency. This one is the number 26. It deals with the roundabout. At the planning conference, we had a discussion about the board's concerned about the ability for pedestrians to get around, and one idea was to move those crosswalks outside that roundabout. The question is, you know, what we heard is NCOD is considering eliminating the traffic circle, and there may really no longer be a need for this issue. I think the more we talk about it, I think we should continue to push to continue to have the traffic circle. I mean, I think we should be convinced, if DOT would listen to us, that traffic circle, we think, moves traffic well. We'd like to hear more data before they take that traffic circle out in the middle of it functioning well. You have any thoughts about that? I mean,
I think that's a question that's been asked, and I think DOT really hasn't provided an adequate reason at this point. So that is something the CRTPO is looking at this point, questioning part of the 51 widening project.
all right. Number 32 there is the murals. You know, we have done some murals. I know there's some that's been down, 2 of them on the stairs. You know, the last mural that came to the board, you guys really didn't love or, didn't tell a story of Matthews that you would like to see, I would like to suggest that right now it goes to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and then comes through to you. I would like to ask the question, is there value in the board appointing some type of ad hoc committee that would review and propose mural and public art and then report directly back to the board? So it's, in my mind, it's a much shorter, they have a very specific purpose. It's art and murals, as opposed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, which has a lot of things on their plate. And because I do think this is a very high priority, and I think you guys want us kind of churn them out, or y'all churn them out, and that's what I would suggest is a way to get good ideas back to you guys quickly.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Hazen, in my opinion, I don't feel an ad hoc committee to review the murals would add any value. I would just suggest that the artist or the Park and Rec Department bring us options. In other words, instead of saying it's going to be put on this wall on next week or in 2 weeks or something, have 2 or 3 options and 2 or 3 locations, and we vote on them. The ad hoc committee seems like another level of, to me, just another level of bureaucracy or something like that. I respect what Park and Rec brings to us, but maybe just bring us more than one option. And there's always going to be critics out there, and some of their viewpoints were valid, but you got to start somewhere. So maybe that particular piece could go to another wall that's more pedestrian friendly because of the poem or something.
Mr. Mint.
I would echo that I think another committee would just add another layer of confusion, and I think that murals are such an integral part of branding our community, and it's not a temporary brand. This is something that is really pretty permanent, and I think that those kinds of decisions lie with more of this board instead of another committee.
Mr. Irvin.
I think in the fact that we had a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot, we had a considerable amount of emails about the last mural, pro and con. I'd like to see, it's not an ad hoc committee, I'd like to see Parks and Rec either spin off a subcommittee or do something where they can open it up to the general public to respond. They go about their business like all advisory boards, and it's sort of a finite group. I don't know how many business people in downtown realize they can attend an advisory board meeting, but I think in light of the 3 or 4 business entrepreneurs that emailed us, I would like to extend out to the business folks in downtown to be part of that discussion, and just that discussion only on the murals and all, and it might engender some fruitful discussion. That's my only concern, is because Parks and Rec sort of got their ideology. I don't know if they were ever privy to Commissioner Miller's presentation on the branding of Matthews, and it was steeples and railroad theme and stuff like that. But I think we owe it to ourselves to open up to the general public in the downtown area, because it directly affects them in a lot of ways. And I think that one mural we're talking about was right outside Buffalo Jackson's door, right near Silent Images and all, and they all spoke out about it. But I don't think they were wanting to be critical. I think they were wanting to be more participatory in the fine-tuning of what that mural was. So if we can kind of, if they all turn around and say, I'm too busy not to do it, fine, we keep moving forward. But I think there's probably some opportunity to bring some people in on board that we haven't had in the past to discuss this.
Good points.
And so just to clarify, Commissioner, when you're saying, let's say the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board vet it through some kind of downtown group or downtown businesses, but I assume y'all would still like to see several options so y'all can say.
No,
like,
absolutely, but the point is then you've got the feedback of business owners and residents in downtown talking about this and thoroughly vetting it, because you saw very impassioned emails for and against that particular mural, and I think if you got them in the room and talked about it, there may have been a compromise in this whole situation, we wouldn't be here today. So I think there's some passion in town about this conversation. Let's bring it to them from that aspect.
Mr. Higdon?
I agree with what Commissioner Urban is saying, but I don't think the commentary should be exclusive to the downtown business folks. It should be anybody that lives here. A lot of people visit downtown very often, and we should listen to anybody that lives here.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, but I will tell you the reaction was just downtown business owners who felt that they have a stake in the game in terms of the visibility of these things. But yes, it is the town of Matthews, and let it be wide open, but I think you'll find that it'll fall on deaf ears outside of downtown and those downtown, or maybe it falls on all deaf ears. I don't know. But we talk about this all the time. How do we get out to everybody? We got to give it a shot and just open it up.
Is it possible to do a survey on our website? Yeah.
Get a nod yes over here.
Do you like this, not like it, comments?
Mr. Melton?
We vote for photographs.
Thank you, Mayor. I think what I'm hearing is just to open it up. The last mural that was brought before us appeared to have been developed in a vacuum. The business owners were told this is going in tomorrow. No one had a say in it, regardless of whether you open it up to the town businesses or to the town citizenry. It has to be opened up to somebody instead of saying, oh, by the way, this is what we're doing. Say, what do you think? And just bring people into the discussion. And I think that's what I'm hearing instead of an ad hoc committee. Continue to move forward with the policy we've got. Just open it up for more input.
I would make the comment that we don't have a policy or procedure
Do we not? Okay.
that is effective. Art in and of itself is created to cause a reaction, whether it's something of saying that's beautiful or that's the most terrible thing I've ever seen or whatever. That's what it's meant to do, is to create some type of an emotional reaction. I think we need a procedure, and I think the word vacuum is probably the right word, but we need to get a procedure in place that takes us through a process so that we do get community input, that we do get input from business owners, that this board has an opportunity to see these things before it ever comes back to us with the options for approval. We need to know what the locations are that we're considering throughout town. That particular, well, I'll tell you what I told Hazen. When I saw that picture, it drew me back to 1970 and Vietnam. So that's what I felt when I saw it. And I thought, okay, a bunch of hippies, flower power. I don't particularly want to see that when I'm driving down the street. It's a reaction to the art. It's my reaction to that art. But, I don't think that particular mural would be bad in another part of town in the appropriate place. So it's not the picture itself, it's just where it was. So I think we need to come up with some kind of a procedure to follow to do this and consider public input and the board's input long before we get to the point where we're seriously considering where this is going to go. Okay. Mr. Urban?
I think we need to go back to the wayfinding in the mural presentation several years ago and kind of relook at the terminology that Buzz had put out there, because there's a difference between murals as art and murals as branding and telling a story about the town of Matthews. And that's part of the procedure. Are you wanting to tell a bigger story about the town of Matthews, or is it about art for the sake of art, and it's not a reflection on Matthews? And I think we have to get there. But I think we need to go back and look at that, because some of the first murals had connectivity to the town of Matthews, the farmers market and things like that, and North End and the bicycle and stuff of that nature. So if we can get over that hurdle, maybe that would solve some problems.
Well, and those aren't mutually exclusive either, right?
Oh,
It can be branding and art at the same time.
But you have to, you got to come up with a plan.
All right, number 36 there. So number 36 has to do with Crestdale. This has taken a little while, but, the Senate appropriated $125,000 through the Speaker Pro Tem's office The 125 was supposed to come through the House of Representatives, whatever, it got bogged down, and then it has eventually come through the Department of Transportation. So the good news is, we do have that $250,000 for improvements to Crestdale, and then we're working on the grant agreements right now. So that's the update. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions for the manager? Okay. Thank you, Hazen. Next item on the agenda is the town mission statement, and Hazen's going to provide that as well.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we kind of talked about, we had this vision and mission and high-level mission. I thought it was confusing, and we're trying to build this strategic plan, and here's two for the board to consider. You know, as you know, the board and the community adopted the 12 vision statements, or the board adopted and the community, whatever, helped create them. And so this mission would dovetail back to those 12 vision statements. And we've got two ideas for y'all to consider. And there could be others too, please don't. And you don't have to adopt it tonight. But option one is to responsibly serve, lead, and enrich our thriving community. Number two is provide responsible governance and a premier quality of life for all who live, work, and play in our thriving community.
So would you like to have comments sent to you and Tom? Or?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Looking for feedback to eventually have you guys adopt a mission statement.
One comment was, I saw the thriving community, and if we look back at our 2009 mission statement, it did speak specifically to Matthews. So I think that, we should work the name of our community into the mission statement somehow as appropriate. Mr. Higman?
I kind of had the same thought, and apologies for being a armchair quarterback, because I know it took a lot of thought to make these, and it's real easy to pick them apart, but I didn't like the word thriving in either one of them, and would rather have the word Matthews in there. When I think, I'm a gardener, right? So when I think of thriving, I'm thinking about my tomato plants vigorously growing, not necessarily the community. So I'd like to have the word Matthews in there as well.
Mr. Mint?
Yeah, I would echo that, and but I do like the simplicity of option number one. Sometimes you pigeonhole yourself and restrain yourself too much when you get too verbose with your words. The concern I would have with number two is that we really can't provide premier quality of life for everybody who lives here, everybody who works here, and everybody who plays here. We can provide opportunities for them to have quality, but I don't think we can reasonably actually make that happen. So that would be my concern with that one. But I like the simplicity of one, the directness of it, as long as we do add our town's name in it. I kind of liked thriving myself because it's vibrant and it shows that we're growing and people are happy and things are going in the right direction.
Mr. Urban?
I'll play devil's advocate. Maybe number one is a little too simplistic in diagramming a sentence. What I do like about, and maybe you're right, Barbara, to provide responsible governance and provide for, or be the catalyst
opportunity
for. But I like the fact that it's kind of answering the questions. We're looking for those people who are living here, for those people who are working here, and play is really the another name for the destination that this community has become. So I like that there's a little bit more, there are more adjectives going on in here on option number two, but I do agree with Commissioner Min about the idea that we can't provide it, but we sort of create the atmosphere or the opportunity for these things to take place. Just push them together.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Is that adequate direction? Okay. All right, next item is 11A, consider live streaming Board of Commissioner meetings. And Maureen is going to lead us in that discussion.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here tonight to discuss the idea of live streaming town board meetings. And what we're really talking about here is more than live streaming. It's providing an open and transparent, user-friendly platform that's going to allow citizens to be able to stay informed on all town board matters. So why live streaming? We all lead busy lives. We have demanding schedules. Citizens can't easily drop their obligations in order to attend a town board meeting. If they can, they may not be able to stay for the entire meeting. They may miss the agenda item that they came for. Live streaming would allow people who want to be involved but may not have the time to get to the meetings to be more engaged. We live in a digital world. Most people are looking to their mobile device for information. I think we're doing a good job of keeping up with that demand with our user-friendly, mobile-friendly website and our social media channels. And live streaming town board meetings will make the meetings themselves accessible to everyone directly from their computer or mobile device. And that would be either live during the meeting or immediately following. It'll be posted on our website and it's ready for viewing. When you look at many of our neighboring communities, a lot of them are live streaming. It's really become a best practice in terms of transparency and accessibility. Waxhaw, Indian Trail, Davidson, many others. In addition to that, the platform that we are recommending, which is Granicus, is the vendor, they provide some really great features like indexing and searching that go along with the live streaming component. So I'd like to show you some of that right now. So this is Greenville, North Carolina, and this is what the video player looks like. So this is what citizens would click through our website, direct link on the homepage or find it on social media, and they would start watching the meeting live. Watch it full screen or the smaller version here, and then follow along with the agenda as they're watching the meeting live. After the meeting is over, we have the ability to index it. So say the meeting's over, later that evening, I'm a citizen at home, I want to hear what was the discussion about Environmental Advisory Commission. I'm gonna click on that and it's gonna bring me to the point in the video where the board starts discussing that agenda item. You can also put the minutes in here and some other supporting documents. So another example here is showing you the search functionality. This is the town of Wake Forest, and this is their library of meetings. They've obviously been doing this for a while, so they have quite a library. But what you can do is go in there and type, say you want to find out parking. Type that word in there, which I'm going to do. So it's going to show me all of the agenda items or discussion during the meeting about the topic of parking. So I'm a citizen at home, I can really dive in here and read through all this, or obviously you can search for anything, and once we start building up the meetings and the agendas, this is really going to be a helpful tool for citizens to find the information that they're looking for. Right now our agendas, our minutes are not searchable, so you can spend a lot of time digging for information. So again, a user-friendly, transparent platform that empowers citizens to be engaged and stay informed on town board matters. And I'll take any questions.
Mr. Melton?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Maureen, I have two questions. One, I see a difference between streaming our meetings and this product. Is it our intent to make the meetings open and available to the public and then give them the archiving capabilities? I'm struggling with what is our intent? To do A or B?
It's both.
It's both, okay. If, at the end of the 36-month contract, if we decide for whatever reason to leave Granicus and go to another vendor, is this information exportable for them to just grab and pick up, or are we gonna lose 36 months of data and have to start over?
No, we own all of the content. So if we leave Granicus at any time, it's ours. All of this is ours.
Are they storing it, or are we storing it?
They're storing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Higgin?
I have a comment and then a question. I certainly am in favor of being totally transparent, and I think this is probably a good product, but I do know that our current YouTube channel, I once looked at it, I think I was the 4th person ever or something like that. So I don't know, and town staff was probably the other 3 people who looked at it, so it's not been real popular with our citizens, but I do think it's the fact that it's searchable, maybe it would be more readily utilized. The question I have is, this appears to be a pretty good product. How is it on a price basis compared to the competitors?
So we looked at a variety of different options. There are a lot of options out there, and this one was sort of middle of the road. The 3 I would say that we considered seriously, there was one significantly more expensive, and then there was one significantly less expensive. So again, this one was right in the middle. And the reason that we're recommending this one is because it does come with the indexing and the searching and a lot of those other digital tools that I think are really important and make this really user-friendly. We're not just live streaming, it's a lot more than that. Okay. So I think that's the extra cost.
Ms. DeMint?
I think it's necessary for us to do something like this and start building that library, regardless if many people are looking at it right now or not. I agree that the YouTube channel, people aren't looking at it, and maybe it's not that easy for them, but I think this would be easier. One thing that I've been proud of that this board has done that I don't think previous boards have maybe thought forward enough to do, and I think we've made every effort to meet citizens where they are instead of expecting them to come to us. And I think this is just one last thing that we could do, that is we can go to them and make it easier. So that leads to transparency and to trust. And with the searching part, I think that would benefit and quite possibly could have a great consequence, unintended consequence, to relieving staff of having to provide some public information if it's there for people to automatically find themselves. So I think there could be that dual bonus that could help us too if they have another avenue to get it.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you. The name Granicus rings a bell with me, and as I recall, they used to do our website. Is that correct? And
No, you may be thinking of Granite Sky. I don't believe we
Is that
worked
what it
with
was?
Granicus in the past. But Granicus is a very well-known company. You may have heard of them.
I have,
They have
yeah.
a lot of clients, over 150 in North Carolina alone. So
But it was Granite Sky
It's Granite
before?
Sky.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have a motion to recommend, or excuse me, to approve the live screening of town board meetings and authorize the manager to enter into an agreement with Granicus?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Melton?
Whose budget is this coming out?
Well, it probably could be, it's going to be administration's budget, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Discussion? Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Maureen. Next item on the agenda is new business. And, excuse me, is item 11B, receive information on cost recovery pricing structure for parks, recreation, and cultural resources activities. Mr. King.
Thank you, Mayor Board. This information tonight is to share what staff in the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee have been working on for a while to answer that question of how should services be priced compared to what it actually costs to deliver. I'll say the old model that many of us may recall of Parks and Recreation Services being, say, 100% or very close to 100% subsidized, those days are gone. That model no longer exists. But there is models that look at which things should be, say, subsidized compared to those where a greater percentage of the cost should be recovered. So I guess there were two goals to the exercise that staff and the advisory committee performed. One is to create a documented strategy for staff to reinforce our pricing methods and also use as an aid in discussing revenue goals, interview actuals with management and elected officials, and also the public. So it started with a comprehensive listing of all the programs offered by the department. And then it was the task of trying to use criteria to put them into different tiers. So of course we started with what we've known as the vision, mission, and value statements for the town and also the Parks and Recreation Department. Another primary filter was benefit, looking at what benefits the community versus what's an individual benefit. Access, what are those barriers to participation? What have we heard citizens ask us not to change? What is the impact of the service if it does not happen? And also, what are the expectations of citizens and the elected officials? I do want to commend the hard work of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. They really dove into this and really worked on this exercise of consensus building. And the result was a three-tiered approach that the department will use. Tier one, looking at those services that are seen as the essential ones. Really, if you look at our vision statements, a lot of it is what the citizens have said that this is what Matthews should look like, this is what we want. It's the parks, greenways, open space, the outdoor recreation, indoor recreation. Examples, of course, no admission to our public parks, no admission to the McDowell Art Center to view any of the art. Looking at our events, again, things that the citizens have said, these are very desirable and these are things that make Matthews, Matthews. So looking at these examples, again, the July 4th People's Parade right here in front of Town Hall. Open gym that looks like it's some badminton going on. Positively Matthews. So in this example, certainly looking at what we've, say, placed this event, the tier that we placed it in, it is one where, say, the expectation is more of a community benefit, but staff does see opportunity where you see it is, say, sponsored by Jameson Realty. So there could be opportunities to maximize what, I guess, revenue could be. And again, it's making a differentiation between expectation and what actuals are. Again, for example, we do not charge for admission to any park, but the example of Positively Matthews, the sponsorships could certainly bring it to 50% recovery or even greater than 50%. Tier two. In this example, there is a considerable individual benefit, but then there is also a community benefit piece to it. Perfect example is the community garden. The community garden is one that it benefits that gardener very specifically, but as a community, we think it is important to provide fresh vegetables around town. Another example, Camp Funshine. Looking at what the community benefit is, summertime, we certainly want to sort of battle what we see as a recreational boredom. We want to offer opportunities for kids to come out and have fun, but on the individual side, could be viewed as a daycare for a lot of families. And this is another example where we look at what the expectation is, say 50 to 75%, looking at actuals, Camp Funshine is at 125%. So just that example, looking at the expectation compared to what the actual is. And then my favorite, Tier 3. These are ones where the benefit, you can clearly see that it is, say, an individual benefit. It's the camp that we just held last week, NBA legend Muggsy Bogues delivering a summer camp at Cruz Rec Center. We do think it's important, say, for kids to come out and enjoy basketball, but it is a very individual benefit to have Muggsy Bogues, say, lead that type of instruction. Same example, Kinder Music, very specific program organization that has a very specific service. Again, one that the expectation of recovery is greater than, say, the other two tiers. So in summation, looking at those activities and services where the benefit really is to the greater good, to the greater community, the expectation of recovery is lower, or say 0 to 50%. Tier 2, some individual benefit, some community benefit, expectation is a little bit higher. Again, looking at those examples where the actual may fall greater in most cases than what the tier reflects. And Tier 3 where it is mostly individual. So how is the Matthews Parks and Recreation Department performing? So every 4 years, the Recreation Resource Services, they conduct research around the state of North Carolina. The last one was done in 2016, and at that time, 20% was the reported expectation by those departments that did respond as far as the expected recovery of the town investment. Conversely, the 2019 NRPA report is of actuals, and again, but it is reported agencies where the actual recovery percentage was closer to 28 or 27.3%. And looking at how the town of Matthews is performing, I'll say comparatively doing pretty well. And you can sort of see how the pyramid forms itself looking at the divisions within the department. Cruz Rec Center, Matthews Community Center, a lot of the programs are what we see as the individual benefit. Some of them have some of the community benefit. And then as we drop down to what we see as, or recognize really as those things that we see in our vision statements, what the citizens have said that this is what makes Matthews, the events and the parks, the recovery is a little bit lower. So now with that, there are revenue goals that of course we have. And so a product of this exercise was a price formula that our staff uses to input data, and we're very deliberate about our pricing. So again, we take the steps to make sure that the programs are priced accordingly to produce the anticipated result, but also understanding that there are also goals of each program, just depending on what the program is. So if there are what we perceive as financial barriers, we have scholarship programs in place where if a student qualifies for CMS free or reduced lunch, they are eligible to receive a 30% reduction in cost for certain programs. Sibling discount, as the name suggests, if a sibling registers for the same class as their brother or sister, there's a discount available for them for some programs. Volume discounts, example, we offer a number of ballet classes with a number of different sessions. So somebody that registers for 4 sessions, being like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, would pay a little bit less per session than someone who only registered for a Monday session. And our Matthews resident versus non-resident rate, citizens that live beyond the jurisdictional boundaries of Matthews do pay a little bit more for participation or for the services, and usually it's anywhere from 25 to even up to 50% greater cost. And again, informational, wanted to share again what the advisory committee has been working on. This was something that was initiated roughly about 2 years ago. We did want to take time to produce some data, what we showed a little bit about tonight, to just be able to share it with you.
Good work. Any questions, Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Corey. I don't have much to say other than the programming tiers approach seems brilliant to me on who it benefits. We all know that the public events in Stumptown Park with concerts and different programs that we offer there, and mostly entertainment type events, are extremely popular, and it's what makes us the envy of our neighbors, as well as getting into the center tier. But I would have never thought to price it according to whether it's a public benefit or mostly an individual benefit. I just wanted to compliment you. I think it's brilliant. I've never seen that before.
Mr. Higdon?
Corey, the recovery amount seems to be trending upwards. Is that intentional, and do you have an ultimate goal for how much you'd like to recover?
I mean, again, there are multiple goals for each program, but I do think it is our department, say, being good stewards of the public dollars, and if there's an opportunity to recover a greater percentage, we're going to take advantage of any capacity without trying to create an additional financial barrier.
Well, I'd like to echo what Commissioner Miller says. Great job.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Any other comments? Corey, I think that this is extremely helpful for us to understand exactly how we're getting revenue and how you're conducting the program. So certainly appreciate the information this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, item 11C is a monthly budget report. I'll turn to the Assistant Town Manager, Becky Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what the board has in front of them is the budget report that shows revenues and expenditures that have been received through the end of May. So on paper, we have 1 month left in our fiscal year. So when you look at some of the revenues that we've received to date, you may look at some of the percentages and wonder, why do some of them still look so low? So I did just want to go over those really quickly to point out just a couple of things to remind the board of. So for the ad valorem taxes, we do expect those to be off just a little bit this year due to the adjustment that we made with ACTS. We've discussed that with the board a couple of times. But as you look to the other revenue line items for local option sales tax and trending that out, even though on paper we've received 78.7% of expected revenues to date, we are still expecting that by the time the books close, so we continue to receive revenues that we are able to count back to the current fiscal year, even after the technical end of the fiscal year. So by the time all the smoke clears, if you will, we do expect to still have exceeded projected revenues for the local option sales tax. Similar with the unrestricted intergovernmental, we receive some of those specific items only twice a year, and for some of them we've only still received 1 payment. So we still have another one coming for some of those individual revenue line items. So we expect unrestricted intergovernmental to be close to 100% of projected, again, by the time we are able to close our books on the fiscal year. Do just want to point out investment earnings continue to look fantastic for us. Interest rates have gone up in general, and then we continue to be able to earn significant interest on all of the Erickson money that we have earmarked for the extension of McKee Road. But we know that that's not going to have to be paid out even through the end of next fiscal year. So we're just going to be able to continue to earn interest on that, presuming that interest rates stay positive the way that they have been so far. And on the expenditure side, our departments continue to do a good job of being responsible with their budgets. Of course, towards the end of the fiscal year, there will be some additional spending before the close of the books. So, but we still feel good that we will come in line with our revenues being able to balance out with the expenditures. But happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Any questions for Becky? Okay. Mr. Miller, do you have a?
I had in my notes investment earnings, they are obviously overperforming at almost 206%. Where are these investments held?
So we keep those at the North Carolina Capital Trust, so it's not a public bank, but again, a lot of that is the excess funds from Erickson that are earning interest for us. So we're
Working to our
earning,
advantage.
we're earning almost $30,000 in interest a month right now.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay. Mr. Urban, did you have a question? Okay. All right. Thank you, Becky. Next item, 11D, is the contract for the town attorney. I'll call on the attorney to just give us a brief update of the change that's occurred to the contract.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
And it is that time of year again to go through the annual trainer contract with the town. The only one change in it is it's been 3 years since there was an adjustment in the hourly rate, and I'm submitting this with an increase in the hourly rate to $225 an hour. And that's the only change in the contract.
Okay. Any questions for the attorney, Mr. Higdon?
What was the previous rate?
205.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the attorney-client representation agreement for 2019-2020 fiscal year? I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Query?
Yes, I wanted to ask Charlie something that's really not got to do with his contract, but I think it leads us into where we go in the future. Charlie, I don't know what you've got in mind as far as retirement, or should we be letting you train someone along those lines? Because it's kind of a specialty area that you do perform and you do. an
It
excellent
is,
job.
but you're going to probably go out for requests for proposals to seek an attorney. And so I don't know how you can say I can train someone.
Well, I mean,
Surely you could find someone with some municipal experience.
have you got any idea in retirement?
I do not.
Okay.
It's not on the horizon.
Okay, that was the only questions I had to kind of, you come at the last minute and say.
Oh, I hope you know me better than that.
I hope so too, but I don't want us to get caught flat-footed, so that was, just wanted to ask you.
I would not do that to the town.
Okay.
We've got a 40-some-year history. I would not do that to the town.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. Next item is the mayor's report. I did want to update you on some of the things that are going on with the John Street funding. The portion of road from Trade Street all the way out to Wesley Chapel in Union County has been divided up into 4 different sections. We are Section A from Trade to 485. 485 interchange is Section B. Then from 485 through Stallings and Indian Trail is is C. And then on from Indian Trail out to Wesley Chapel is D. Indian Trail voted a number of weeks ago to rescind the $10 million that they had committed to the project, which was voted on by the citizens of Indian Trail in the form of bonds. Because of that, the project for them is being re-examined. It was scored higher because they were contributing dollars to the project. And so one of the things that has come out of that is the fact that we have deferred John Street, and is that funding available early. So they would essentially be taking our funding to do their project and then fund John Street later on. I do have a concern about the urgency of this from the perspective of talking to DOT and coming up with some plan for John Street that we can all live with. And as you know, the money that is set aside for the Super Street project is hinged upon the reduction of emissions. So its sole purpose and the money that's being used must meet a criteria for reduction in emissions. So we need to look at that and push forward with what we want to do, and this board needs to make a commitment of what that is and realize that what we come up with may not be able to use the money that's earmarked for that road right now with the Super Street. So from a manager's perspective, I'd like for Public Works for us to work together and push forward with trying to get that up on the front burner. I think we were talking about September or October, but given the fact that this funding issue has come up, I'm concerned that we could lose the money and then, have to float a bond to do that road. So, but I just wanted to update you. I can't really give you any specifics at this point. It was a discussion at the meeting this past Wednesday, and we're going to continue to discuss it further. I will also tell you that there's monies that are coming from a discretionary fund from the state that the governor is asking to swap out, and it's for the northern part of the counties to have connectivity between entrances and exits on I-77, and the CRTPO seems to be pushing back on that and asking the question, why should we give up $10 million or have a funding issue to deal with when the state's got multiple tens of millions of dollars in discretionary funds available. So we're working on that as well to see if we can perhaps get the 10 million from that source. So more to come. Just wanted to update you on that and let everybody know what was going on. Next item is attorney's report.
Yes, Mayor, I have a couple of things I wanted to bring up tonight. First of all, there was a case that came out of the Fourth Circuit back in the winter, but it takes time for lawsuits and their written opinions to circulate throughout the circuit. But this one had to do with social media and elected officials. And I wanted to point out to you that the basis of the case, and I won't go into detail because it's a 46-page opinion and it's very highly written in terms of constitutional law, but the basis of it is that if an elected official has a social media account, particularly Facebook, as a commissioner or as an elected official, let me rephrase that because it's both commissioners and the mayor. If you have an elected official Facebook account or Twitter, and it's interactive, where you are soliciting information or comments from the public in your official capacity, you cannot delete someone who gives you adverse criticism or calls you bad names. You cannot delete anyone from that because that becomes a content discrimination. The problem with it also is it's evidentiary, but the case seems to indicate that it then becomes a violation of the First Amendment rights of that person who was deleted. And that violation, because of the nature of the Facebook account, there's sufficient governmental event in that the town could be held liable under a what they call a 1983 action, a violation of their constitutional rights of that person. And those are very steep violations, fines generally what happens, and steep judgments on behalf of the plaintiff who has had their constitutional rights violated. So I just wanted to point that out. We'll give you more information on that. I just wanted to say this, you know, it's just circulating around right now. And so just to alert you, be careful. Once you make that an interactive account, you cannot delete somebody. Now, your personal account, you can delete whoever you want to. But if you've got a Facebook page out there in your capacity as an elected official, and people are commenting and you're soliciting comments and you're acting as if you're giving information about how the town is operating as an elected official, then you really cannot delete somebody because they take an adverse position to yours.
Got a question. Can you delete the entire account?
Yes, you can delete the account, but you cannot delete based on content, meaning an individual's opposition to you, for instance.
You can just shut the account down?
You can shut the account down, yes. And also at this time of year, there are election laws, and you cannot, and you all already know this, I'm preaching to the choir, but if you have that Facebook account and you're as an elected official, you cannot campaign on that account, and you already know that, I guess. But I just wanted to remind you of that so that nobody gets caught, inadvertently get caught in a trap on this. You can do it on your personal page, but you can't do it on your elected official page. You cannot campaign and politic on that page. And that's a violation of the North Carolina elections laws on that. And I just point those two out to you. And then the next item and the last item is the inevitable, the Municipal Attorney's Summer Conference is coming up 1st of August. And I have to get in registrations ahead of time if I'm going to go. So I would ask permission from the board to be able to attend the North Carolina Municipal Attorney's Summer Conference. And hopefully some of these things that we're talking about right now will be on that agenda for discussion. But I would like to be able to go to that and would ask that I be allowed to go under the travel policies of the town.
Do we need a motion to?
You do.
Okay, do we have a motion to allow the attorney to attend the summer conference under the travel policies of the town?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries
Again, thank you.
unanimously. Mr. Buckley, let me ask you a question on
Surely.
the original comments about comments you disagree with on a Facebook page. There's no obligation to respond to those. You just can't delete them.
You can't delete them.
Okay.
No obligation to respond,
Yeah.
of course.
So there's nothing wrong with ignoring something that you know
But
is
you
going
can, what in effect it is, you're creating something in the nature of a public forum.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
there are different types of public forums that require different constitutional tests, but if it's based on content discrimination, then whatever kind of forum it is irrelevant.
Okay.
It's a violation.
All right. Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Buckley? Okay. Next item is the manager's report. Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, I was going to give the board an update on the pedestrian being struck down on North Trade Street, but since our police chief is here and he actually gave me the talking points, I figured we'd ask him to come forward and give us a brief update on what's transpired so far.
Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners, just to give you a brief update, as we all know, Friday morning about 9:06 a.m., officers received report of a pedestrian struck on the 300 block of North Trade Street. When we arrived, there were citizens on scene providing aid to the victim. Officers then stepped in, provided aid, and were ultimately relieved by EMS. Unfortunately, the injuries that were suffered that day did sustain or did result in Ms. Fanny Dolores Bunn passing away from injuries. This investigation is still ongoing. A couple of things I can talk about. We do know, or at least it indicates at this point in the investigation, we do believe she was in the crosswalk. There are other factors that we're looking at this point on driver's actions, pedestrian actions that all weigh into this investigation. So without going too deeply into that, I will tell you that we have some very highly trained accident reconstructionists that work for the police department. They, one being Officer Cohn, who is assigned as the lead investigator in this case. He's doing a phenomenal job, by the way. We did put out a press release kind of notifying everybody that this was an ongoing investigation, that it was closed down for the duration of the investigation and when it was reopened. Part of our policy and the way that we operate, at least moving forward, is we look at a three-prong approach when we put out press releases. We look at education, prevention, and enforcement. We're going to notify the public of how we're going to address these issues. Part of our press release does include talking points or training, educational points to the public, both as a pedestrian and as a driver. So we did include that in our press release. If you saw that, hopefully the key point was not that these were any factors involved, but pedestrians should be aware of crossing traffic and speed and getting off of their devices so that they can see the oncoming traffic more readily, and also we encourage that to our drivers also. Again, not that that's any part of this investigation, but that is part of our ongoing educational enforcement and prevention efforts.
Okay. One thing I'd like to say, I did have the opportunity to walk down with the assistant town manager while the investigation was being performed, and I just want to compliment the team and their the work they were doing and how many measurements they were taking and really thoroughly investigating the scene. And then I thought the interaction between the police officers and the gentleman who was driving the car were very good, because he was obviously upset about what had occurred, but I felt like they were very calm with him and taking a bad situation and not making it worse, but you know, helping him along to collect his things, and understand
Thank you.
what was going on.
I will pass that on to the officers too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very, very good. Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Mr. Buckley wanted to make one more comment about another item.
There was another issue that I was called about this week, and I meant to mention this, about politicking and doing town business. If there's a majority of elected officials attending a political event, politics is not town business. So the fact that you all 5 or 6 or a majority happen to be in the same room where the event is dealing with politics, that's not a violation of the open meetings law. It's the same as a party. If you were having a social event and you were all there, you have to be conducting town business in order to be violating the open meetings law. So I just wanted to pass that on, because I've had a couple of you ask me something about that. And I just want to relieve you that that's not a violation of open meetings law if you are physically present in an event that's not town business. And politics is not town business. So I just point that out to you as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Buckley. Next item is adjournment. Do we have such a motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now adjourned.
Okay. I might get home at a decent hour.